Hello my friends, and if you are new to my channel and you just found me here at this video, welcome. I am Daisy, your hostess. If you just found me here, we are actually going through the book of Homer's Odyssey, translated by Robert Fitzgerald. We're diving into book 6 and 7 in this video, and it is in book 6 that we get more insights into the lineage of the gods, with mention of the Cyclops and the Graces. And we learn also that the Cyclops are not far from the Phaeacian lands, which is where Odysseus is heading. The ever shapeshifter Athena, who seems to me like a doting aunt, and well, since Odysseus was son of Laertes, who was the son of Arceisius, and he was the son of Zeus with his union with Eurydia, that most certainly makes Athena his great-great-great-aunt, which bears to mind the bloodline of Odysseus and his ability to withstand those 20 days at sea, though mortal that he may be. With Odysseus finally on shore, Athena creates a plan of how to get him in front of King Alcinous, and cleverly shapeshifts to familiar form so that she can speak with the king's daughter and convince her that she needs to take the maids to the river to have the clothes washed. And I couldn't help but think of my earlier days when I was a little girl and my parents left me to be raised by my grandparents in the beautiful island of the Dominican Republic. In those days, the villages didn't have any electricity, the small villages, and Grandma would send my older cousins with baskets of dirty clothes carried on horses to have them washed in the river. And after the clothes were washed, they were laid on big rocks, very similar to how it was described here in Homer's Odyssey. And we, the little ones, would be out there playing and splashing in the river and running through the fields. And we'd come home with the setting sun behind us, ready for a cup of warm milk and sleep. Slept like, well, yeah, like babies. I will always thank my parents for those memories. But anyway, back to Homer's Odyssey. We get to meet many goddesses in this particular chapter. Leto, Artemis, and Tegetes, who come down to play with Nausicaa. And you can't beat that Bronze Age. Gods physically interacting with humans. What a delight that must have been. Well, with Athena's plan at hand, and Nausicaa discovers the stranded Odysseus and gives him food, offers him clothing, and also olive oil so he can anoint his skin after his fresh bath in the river before he gets to meet her dad, King Alcinous. We also learned that the Phaeacians are mastership designers, and I know if I were a scholar, there would be a different angle to what I'm trying to get out of this book, this reading. But for me, as a layperson, what I am trying to see and just amazed how this author of that era, we're talking about 700 BC, and he's describing a setting that supposedly is set in the Bronze period, which is before his time. And I think to myself, as I was telling my husband, it's like, well, things just don't come out of the air. Well, maybe the gods do, right? But I'm here just telling a story, and also at this moment just kind of sharing with you my thoughts. So we had, during that time period, I've learned Homer's Odyssey and also Hesiod's Theogony. And this is that same time period, 700 BC. And these were the first documents that started even sharing or writing down anything of mythology. But it's Homer's Odyssey that they have anything recorded about the Trojan War. And so there's so much detail and richness that if we were like, I don't know, archaeologists, or as I see myself right now, literary travelers of time, we're traveling back in time. And Homer is giving us a glimpse of what the people were doing, because it's like these things are just not coming up. I mean, obviously, if you have two people in different regions writing about the gods right about the same time, pretty much kind of the same thing, wouldn't that mean that there's a population of people talking about the gods? Why are they all talking about these gods? It wasn't just made up in somebody's head when you have two people from different regions putting these similar attributes. So this must be a mindset in the time period And now my question is, mythology or not, there could be a little room for us to think, how real could any of this have been? Interesting, right? That's just how I see it. But anyway, so that's kind of where I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated at listening, the pharmacology, the politics, the basis of faith, which seems to be the root of where we are today, as far as different religions. It was coming from somewhere. People of these religions today were grabbing these concepts from something before. And I'm just putting it out there as something to contemplate. Again, I'm not an expert in any of this. Just enjoying the ride here on Earth. That's all I'm doing. So when Odysseus arrives at King Alcyoneus' palace, we get a glimpse of the metallurgy and the semi-precious stones. These were being cultivated in the Bronze Age, as he describes the lintels, the posts, the handles of the doors and panels being worked in bronze, silver, and gold, and the moldings of lapis lazuli. And these were said to be casted by the god Hephaestus himself, being the son of Zeus and Hera. So the humans held such favor in the eyes of the gods. Should I be so lucky to be graced in such a way by the gods, my little home here would look like a palace. So the imagery sings in my mind of regal and heavenly, both at the same time. Oh, and the joy to every gardener, as Odysseus recalled the garden view in Book 7, titled appropriately Gardens and Firelight. And there were all kinds of trees mentioned there: pears, pomegranates, apple trees, fig trees, olive trees, grapes and currants, and vegetables in all season. Now, what is ingenious is how he describes that these plots, the vegetable beds and the trees and all these garden areas, were getting fed water from a clear fountain, and that there were pipes that ran under the courtyard entrance to serve the house and all who came for water. And so this was a place that reminds me of, there's an area here in Central Florida it's a beautiful park. It's called Ponce de Leon, and it was one of the first spring parks. And when you go there, if you get a chance to come to Florida, they have this area where it's like they call it the first fountain of youth, but it's actually set where the water, where people would come in from the locals and grab their water. So I can imagine that, since I can picture when I was a little girl, if you didn't have a well, you needed a water source. And I could see that people would come just to get jugs and jugs of water for their everyday needs. Anyway, it's just an image that I wanted to share with you. So what I also want to share with you is that the Greeks were one of the first to come up with an aqueduct or plumbing system. So feel free to visit the description of this video. I do have links for your review from the sources that I have here for my prelude. So back to the journey here with Odysseus. Already introduces us to the Fates. Again, more mythological characters when she's talking to Odysseus about his fate, as it was set for him on the day he was born by the spinners, as she called them. And what I've learned about the spinners, which are also known the Fates, they are children of Zeus and Themis. And like I said, man, Zeus was pretty busy with all the chicks in town, right? So these are the ones that spin our fate, from the day we're born to the things we're going to do in life to also the day we die. So it's I can't wait to see if I will make a video on that. That'll be interesting to find out more about them. Anyway, I found it interesting that Alcyoneus was keen to mention that because Odysseus engaged his daughter in conversation on the way to meet him, that he became his daughter's charge. And it seemed to me that he was very eager to wed his daughter to Odysseus. It seems that was the tradition, I guess. Anyway, and I can see now why Nausicaa was very hesitant to have Odysseus accompany him in the caravan back home, especially if she had a suitor in mind already that might have been better looking and younger. Anyway, Odysseus, the masterful tactician that he is, or was, talked himself out of that situation. And so far, in book 6, one of the things that I thought was really sweet when Odysseus was giving Nausicaa a blessing for helping him, when he said that he wishes for her a home, a husband, and harmonious conversation with him. And these are the best thing in the world, being a strong house held in serenity, where man and wife agree. And then he added, woe to their enemies and joy to their friends. How beautiful is that? Well, I'm not going to hold you back anymore because I know some of you are just eager to find out, how did this all come together? So sit back as I turn the page. Book 6, The Princess at the River. Far gone in weariness, in oblivion, the noble and enduring man slept on. But Athena in the night went down the land of the Phaeacians, entering their city. In days gone by, these men held Hyperia, a country of wide dancing grounds, but near them were overbearing Cyclops, whose power could not be turned from pillage. So the Phaeacians migrated thence under Nausithous to settle a new world across the sea, Scaera Island. That first captain walled their promontory, built their homes and shrines, and parceled out the black land for the plow. But he had gone down long ago to death. Alcinous ruled, and heaven gave him wisdom, so on this night the goddess, gray-eyed Athena, entered the palace of Alcinous to make sure of Odysseus' voyage home. She took her way to a painted bedchamber where a young girl lay fast asleep, so fine in mold and feature that she seemed a goddess, the daughter of Alcinous, Nausicaa. On either side, as Graces might have slept, her maids were sleeping. The bright doors were shut, but like a sudden stir of wind, Athena moved to the bedside of the girl, and grew visible as the shipman's Dymas' daughter, a girl the prince's age, and her dear friend. In this form, gray-eyed Athena said to her, "How so remiss, and yet thy mother's daughter? Leaving thy clothes uncared for, Nausicaa, when soon thou must have store of marriage linen, and put thy minstrelsy in wedding dress? Beauty in these will make the folk admire, and bring thy father and gentle mother joy. Let us go washing in the shine of morning. Beside thee will I drub, so wedding chests will brim by evening. Maidenhood must end. Have not the noblest born Phaeacians paid court to thee, whose birth none can excel? Go beg thy sovereign father, even at dawn, to have the mule cart and the mules brought round to take the body linen, gowns, and mantles. Thou shouldst ride, for it become thee more. The washing pools are found so far from home." On this word she departed, great-eyed Athena, to where the gods have their eternal dwelling, as men say, in the fastness of Olympus. Never a tremor of wind, or a splash of rain. No errant snowflake comes to stain that heaven, so calm, so vaporless, the world of light. Here, where the gay gods lived their days of pleasure, the gray-eyed one withdrew, leaving the princess. And now dawn took her own fair throne, awaking the girl in the sweet gown, still charmed by dream. Down through the rooms she went to tell her parents, whom she found still at home. Her mother seated near the great hearth among her maids, and twirling out of her distaff yarn dyed like the sea. Her father at the door, bound for a council of princes and petition of the gentry. She went up close to him and softly said, "My dear papa, could you not send the mule cart around for me, the gig with the pretty wheels? I must take all our things and get them washed at the river pools. Our linen is all soiled, and you should wear fresh clothing, going to council, with counselors and first men of the realm. Remember your 5 sons at home. Though 2 are married, we have still 3 bachelor sprigs. See what I must think of?" She had no word to say of her own wedding, though her keen father saw her blush. Said he, "No mules would I deny you, child, nor anything. Go along now. The grooms will bring your gig with pretty wheels and the cargo box upon it." He spoke to the stableman, who soon brought round the cart, low-wheeled and nimble, harnessed the mules, and backed them in the traces. Meanwhile, the girl fetched all her spoiled apparel to bundle in the polished wagon box. Her mother, for their luncheon, packed a hamper with picnic fare and filled a skin of wine, and, when the princess had been handed up, gave her a golden bottle of olive oil for softening girls' bodies after bathing. Nausicaa took the reins and raised her whip, lashing the mules. What jingling! What a clatter! But off they went in the ground-covering trot, with princess, maids, and laundry drawn behind. By the lower river where the wagon came were washing pools, with water all year flowing in limpid spillways that no grime withstood. The girls unhitched the mules and sent them down along the eddying stream to crop sweet grass. Then, sliding out the cart's tailboard, they took armloads of clothing to the dusky water and trod them in the pits, making a race of it. All being drubbed, all blemish rinsed away, they spread them, piece by piece, along the beach whose pebbles had been laundered by the sea. Then took a dip themselves, and, all anointed with golden oil, ate lunch beside the river while the bright burning sun dried out their linen. Princess and maids delighted in the feast. Then, putting off their veils, they ran and passed a ball to a rhythmic beat, Nausicaa flashing first with her white arms. So Artemis goes flying after her arrows flown down from tremendous valley side. Taygetos, Erymanthos, chasing the mountain goats or ghosting deer, with nymphs of the wild places flanking her, and Leto's heart delights to see them running. For, taller by a head than nymphs can be, the goddess shows more stately, all being beautiful. So one could tell the princess from the maids. Soon it was time, she knew, for riding homeward, mules to be harnessed, linen folded smooth, but the gray-eyed goddess Athena made her tarry, so that Odysseus might behold her beauty and win her guidance to the town. It happened when the king's daughter threw her ball offline and missed, and put it in the whirling stream, at which they all gave such a shout. Odysseus awoke and sat up, saying to himself, "Now by my life, mankind again? But who? Savages, are they strangers to courtesy? Or gentle folk, who know and fear the gods?" That was a lusty cry of tall young girls, most like the cry of nymphs who haunt the peaks and springs of brooks and inland grassy places. Or am I amid people of human speech? Up again, man, and let's see for myself. He pushed aside the bushes, breaking off with his great hand a single branch of olive, whose leaves might shield him in his nakedness. So came out rustling, like a mountain lion, rain-drenched, wind-buffeted, but in his might at ease, with burning eyes, who prowls among the herds or flocks, or after game, his hungry belly taking him near stout homesteads for his prey. Odysseus had this look, in his rough skin, advancing on the girls with pretty braids, and he was driven on by hunger too. Streaked with brine and swollen, he terrified them, so that they fled this way and that. Only Alcino's daughter stood her ground, being given a bold heart by Athena and steady knees. She faced him, waiting, and Odysseus came, debating inwardly what he should do, embrace this beauty's knees in supplication, or stand apart and, using honeyed speech, inquire the way to town and beg some clothing. In his swift reckoning, he thought it best to trust in words to please her and keep away. He might anger the girl, touching her knees. So he began and let the soft words fall. "Mistress, please, are you divine or mortal? If one of those who dwell in the wide heaven, you are the most near to Artemis, I should say, great Zeus's daughter, in your grace and presence. If you are one of earth's inhabitants, how blessed your father and your gentle mother, blessed all your kin. I know what happiness must send the warm tears to their eyes each time they see their wondrous child go to the dancing. But one man's destiny is more than blessed, he who prevails and takes you as his bride. Never have I laid eyes on equal beauty in man or woman. I am hushed indeed. So fair, one time, I thought a young palm tree at Delos near the altar of Apollo. I had troops under me when I was there on the sea route that later brought me grief. But that slim palm tree filled my heart with wonder. Never came shoot from earth so beautiful. And so now, my lady, I stand in awe so great, I cannot take your knees. And yet my case is desperate. 20 days yesterday, in the wine-dark sea, on the ever-lunging swell, under gale winds, getting away from the island of Ogygia, and now the terror of storm has left me stranded upon this shore, with more blows yet to suffer, I must believe, before the gods relent. Mistress, do me a kindness. After much weary toil, I come to you, and you're the first soul I have seen. I know no others here. Direct me to town. Give me a rag that I can throw around me, some cloth or wrapping that you brought along, and may the gods accomplish your desire, a home, a husband, and harmonious converse with him. The best thing in the world being a strong house held in serenity where man and wife agree. Woe to their enemies, joy to their friends, but all this they know best. Then she of the white arms, Nausicaa, replied, Stranger, there is no quirk or evil in you that I can see. You know Zeus metes out fortune to good and bad men as it pleases him. Hardship he sent to you, and you must bear it. But now that you have taken refuge here, you shall not lack for clothing or any other comfort due to a poor man in distress. The town lies this way, and the men are called Phaeacians, who own the land and the city. I am daughter to the prince Alcinous, by whom the power of our people stands. Then she called out to her maids in waiting, Stay with me. Does the sight of a man scare you, or do you take this one for an enemy? Why, there's no fool so brash, and never will be, as to bring war or pillage to this coast, for we are dear to the immortal gods, living here in the sea that rolls forever, distant from other lands and other men. No, this man is a castaway, poor fellow. We must take care of him. Strangers and beggars come from Zeus. A small gift, then, is friendly. Give our new guest some food and drink, and take him into the river out of the wind to bathe. They stood up now and called to one another to go on back. Quite soon they led Odysseus under the river bank as they were bidden. And there laid out a tunic and a cloak, and gave him olive oil in the golden flask. Here, they said, go bathe in the flowing water, but heard now from that kingly man Odysseus. Maids, he said, keep away a little. Let me wash the brine from my own back and rub on plenty of oil. It is long since my anointing. I take no bath, however, where you can see me, naked before young girls with pretty braids. They left him, then, and went to tell the princess. And now Odysseus, dowsing in the river, scrubbed the coat of brine from back and shoulders and rinsed the clot of sea spume from his hair, got himself all rubbed down from head to foot. Then he put on the clothes the princess gave him. Athena lent a hand, making him seem taller and massive too, with crisping hair in curls like petals of wild hyacinth, but all red golden. Think of gold infused on silver by a craftsman whose fine art Hephaestus taught him, or Athena, one whose work moves to delight. Just so she lavished beauty over Odysseus' head and shoulders. Then he went down to sit on the sea beach in his splendor. There the girl regarded him, and after a time she said to the maids beside her, My gentlewomen, I have a thing to tell you. The Olympian gods cannot be all averse to this man's coming here among our islanders. Uncouth he seemed, I thought so too before, but now he looks like one of heaven's people. I wish my husband could be fine as he and glad to stay forever on Sciera. But have you given refreshment to our guest? At this the maids, all gravely listening, hastened to set out bread and wine before Odysseus, and how ravenously that patient man took food and drink, his long fast at an end. The Princess Nausicaa now turned aside to fold her linens. In the pretty cart she stowed them, put the mule team under harness, mounted the driver's seat, and then looked down to say with cheerful prompting to Odysseus, "Up with you now, friend. Back to town we go, and I shall send you in before my father, who is wondrous wise. There in our house with him you'll meet the noblest of the Phaeacians. You have good sense, I think. Here's how to do it. While we go through the countryside and farmland, stay with my maids, behind the wagon, walking briskly enough to follow where I lead. But near the town, well, there's a wall with towers around the aisle, and beautiful ship basins right and left of the causeway of approach. Seagoing craft are beached beside the road, each on its launching waves. The agora, with fieldstone benches bedded in the earth, lies either side Poseidon's shrine, for there men are at work on pitch-black hulls and rigging cables and sails and tapering off oars. The archer's craft is not for the Phaeacians, but ship designing, modes of oaring cutters in which they love to cross the foaming sea. From these fellows I will have no salty talk, no gossip later. Plenty are insolent, and some sea dog might say, after we passed, "Who is this handsome stranger trailing Nausicaa? Where does she find him? Will he be her husband? Or is she being hospitable to some rover come off his ship from lands across the sea, there being no lands nearer? Oh God, maybe? A God from heaven, the answer to her prayer, descending now to make her his forever? And better if she's roamed and found a husband somewhere else. None of our own will suit her, though many come to court her, and those the best. This is the way they might make light of me, and I myself should hold it shame for any girl to flout her own dear parents, taking up with a man before her marriage. Note well now what I say, friend, and your chances are excellent for safe conduct for my father. You'll find black poplars in a roadside park around a meadow and fountain, all Athena's. But father has a garden in the place, this within earshot of the city wall. Go in there and sit down, giving us time to pass through town and reach my father's house. And when you can imagine we're at home, then take the road into the city, asking direction to the palace of Alcinous. You'll find it easily. A small boy can take you there. No family has a mansion half so grand as he does, being king. As soon as you are safe inside, cross over and go straight through into the Megaron to find my mother. She'll be there in firelight before a column, with her maids in shadow, spinning a wool dyed richly as the sea. My father's great chair faces the fire, too. There like a god he sits and takes his wine. Go past him, cast yourself before my mother, embrace her knees, and you may wake up soon at home rejoicing, though your homes be far. On mother's feeling much depends. If she looks on you kindly, you shall see your friends under your own roof in your father's country." At this she raised her glistening whip, lashing the team into a run. They left the river, cantering beautifully, then trotted smartly. But then she reined them in and spared the whip, so that her maids could follow with Odysseus. The sun was going down when they went by Athena's grove. Here, then, Odysseus rested and lifted up his prayer to Zeus's daughter. "Hear me, unwearied child of royal Zeus. Oh, listen to me now. Though so aloof while the air-shaker wrecked and battered me, may I find love and mercy among these people." He prayed for that, and Pallas Athena heard him, although in deference to her father's brother she would not show her true form to Odysseus, at whom Poseidon smoldered on until the kingly man came home to his own shore. End of Book 6. Stay with me as we flip the page to the next book, titled Gardens and Firelight, Book 7. As Lord Odysseus prayed there in the grove, the girl rode on behind her strapping team and came late to the mansion of her father, where she reined in at the courtyard gate. Her brothers awaited her like tall gods in the court, circling to lead the mules away and carry the laundered things inside. But she withdrew to her own bedroom, where a fire soon shone, kindled by her old nurse, Eurymedusa. Years ago, from a raid on the continent, the rolling ships had brought this woman over to be Alcinous' share, fit spoil for him whose realm hung on his sword as on a god's. And she had schooled the princess Nausicaa, whose fire she tended now, making her supper. Odysseus, when the time had passed, arose and turned into the city. But Athena poured a sea fog around him as he went, her love's expedient, that no jeering sailor should halt the man or challenge him for luck. Instead, as he set foot in the pleasant city, the gray-eyed goddess came to him in figure, a small girl-child hugging a water jug. Confronted by her, Lord Odysseus asked, "Little one, could you take me to the house of that Alcinous, king among these people? You see, I am a poor old stranger here. My home is far away. There is no one known to me in countryside or city." The gray-eyed goddess Athena replied to him, "Oh yes, good grandfer, sir, I know. I'll show you the house you mean. It is quite near my father's. But come now, hush, like this, and follow me. You must not stare at people or be inquisitive. They do not care for strangers in this neighborhood. A foreign man will get no welcome here. The only things they trust are the racing ships Poseidon gave to sail the deep blue sea like white wings in the sky, or a flashing thought." Pallas Athena turned like the wind, running ahead of him, and he followed in her footsteps. And no seafaring men of Phaeacia perceived Odysseus passing through their town. The awesome one in pigtails barred their sight with folds of sacred mist. And yet Odysseus gazed out, marveling at the ships and harbors, public squares, and ramparts towering up with pointed palisades along the top. When they were near the mansion of the king, gray-eyed Athena in the child cried out, "Here it is, grandfer, sir, that mansion house you asked to see. You'll find our king and queen at supper, but you must not be dismayed. Go into them. A cheerful man does best in every enterprise, even a stranger. You'll see Our Lady just inside the hall. Her name is Arete. Her grandfather was our good king Alcinous' father, Nausithous by name, son of Poseidon and Periboia. That was a great beauty, the daughter of Eurymedon, commander of the Gigantes in the olden days, who led those wild things to their doom, and his. Poseidon then made love to Periboia, and she bore Nausithous, Phaeacia's lord, whose sons, in turn, were Rhexenor and Alcinous. Rhexenor had no sons. Even as a bridegroom he fell before the silver bow of Apollo, his only child, a daughter, Arete. When she grew up, Alcinous married her and holds her dear. No lady in the world, no other mistress of a man's household, is honored as our mistress is, and loved by her own children, by Alcinous, and by the people. When she walks the town, they murmur and gaze, as though she were a goddess. No grace or wisdom fails in her. Indeed, just men in quarrels come to her for equity. Supposing, then, she looks upon you kindly, the chances are that you shall see your friends under your own roof in your father's country." At this, the gray-eyed goddess Athena left him and left that comely land, going oversea to Marathon, to the wide roadways of Athens and her retreat in the stronghold of Eurystheus. Odysseus, now alone before the palace, meditated a long time before crossing the brazen threshold of the great courtyard. High rooms he saw ahead, airy and luminous as though with lustres of the sun and moon. Bronze-paneled walls, at several distances making a vista, with an azure molding of lapis lazuli. The doors were golden guardians of the great room. Shining bronze-plated the wide door-sill. The post and lintel were silver upon silver. Golden handles curved on the doors, and golden, too, and silver were sculptured hounds flanking the entranceway, cast by the skill and ardor of Hephaestus to guard the Prince Alcinous' house. Undying dogs that never could grow old. Through all the rooms as far as he could see, tall chairs were placed around the walls and strewn with fine embroidered stuff made by the women. Here were enthroned the leaders of Phaeacia, drinking and dining with abundant fare. Here, too, were boys of golden pedestals holding aloft bright torches of pitch pine to light the great rooms and the night-time feasting. And 50 maids in waiting of the household sat by the round mill, grinding yellow corn, or wove upon their looms, or twirled their distaffs, flickering like the leaves of a poplar tree, while drops of oil glistened on linen weft. Skillful as were the men of Phaeacia in ship-handling at sea, so were these women skilled at the loom, having this lovely craft and artistry as talents from Athena. To left and right, outside, he saw an orchard closed by a pale, 4 spacious acres planted with trees in bloom or weighted down for picking. Pear trees, pomegranates, brilliant apples, luscious figs, and olives ripe and dark. Fruit never failed upon these trees. Winter and summertime they bore, for through the year the breathing west wind ripened all in turn. So one pear came to prime, and then another, and so with apples, figs, and the vine's fruit empurpled in the royal vineyard there. Currants were dried at one end, on a platform bare to the sun, beyond the vintage arbors and vats the vintners trod, while near at hand were new grapes barely formed as the green bloom fell, a half-ripe clusters faintly coloring. After the vines came rows of vegetables of all the kinds that flourish in every season. And through the garden plots and orchard ran channels from one clear fountain, while another gushed through a pipe under the courtyard entrance to serve the house and all who came for water. These were the gifts of heaven to Alcinous. Odysseus, who had borne the barren sea, stood in the gateway and surveyed this bounty. He gazed his fill, then swiftly he went in. The lords and nobles of Phaeacia were tipping wine to the wakeful god, to Hermes, a last libation before going to bed. But down the hall Odysseus went unseen, still in the cloud Athena cloaked him in, until he reached Arete and the king. He threw his great hands around Arete's knees, whereon the sacred mist curled back. They saw him, and the diners hushed amazed to see an unknown man inside the palace. Under their eyes Odysseus made his plea. Arete, admirable Rhexenor's daughter, here is a man bruised by adversity, thrown upon your mercy and the king, your husband's, begging indulgence of this company. May the gods' blessing rest on them. May life be kind to all. Let each one leave his children every good thing this realm confers upon him. But grant me passage to my fatherland. My home and friends lie far. My life is pain. He moved then toward the fire and sat him down amid the ashes. No one stirred or spoke until Alcinous broke the spell. An old man, eldest of the Phaeacians, an oracle, versed in the laws and manners of old time. He rose among them now and spoke out kindly. Alcinous, this will not pass for courtesy, a guest abased in ashes at our hearth? Everyone here awaits your word. So come then, lift the man up, give him a seat of honor, a silver-studded chair. Then tell the stewards we'll have another wine bowl for libation to Zeus, Lord of the lightning, advocate of honorable petitioners, and supper may be supplied our friend by the larder mistress. Alcinous, calm in power, heard him out, then took the great adventurer by the hand and led him from the fire. Nearest his throne the son whom he loved best, Laodamas, had long held place. Now the king bade him rise and gave his shining chair to Lord Odysseus. A serving maid poured water for his hands from a golden pitcher into a silver bowl, and spread a polished table at his side. The mistress of provisions came with bread and other victuals, generous with her store. So Lord Odysseus drank and tasted supper. Seeing this done, the king in majesty said to his squire, "A fresh bowl, Pontonous. We make libation to the Lord of Lightning, who seconds honorable petitioners." Mixing the honey-hearted wine, Pontonous went on his rounds and poured fresh cups for all, whereof, when all had spilt, they drank their fill. Alcinous then spoke to the company. "My lords and leaders of Phaeacia, hear now all that my heart would have me say. Our banquet's ended, so you may retire, but let our seniors gather in the morning to give this guest a feastal day and make fair offerings to the gods. In due course we shall put our minds upon the means at hand to take him safely, comfortably, well and happily with speed to his own country, distant though it may lie. And may no trouble come to him here or on the way. His fate he shall pay out at home, even as the spinner spun for him on the day his mother bore him. If, as may be, he is some god, come down from heaven's height, the gods are working strangely. Until now they have shown themselves in glory only after great hecatombs, those figures banqueting at our side, throned like ourselves. Or if some traveler met them when alone, they bore no least disguise. We are their kin, gigantes, cyclops, rank no nearer gods than we." Odysseus' wits were ready, and he replied, "Alcinous, you may set your mind at rest. Body and birth are most unlikely god am I, being all of earth and mortal nature. I should say, rather, I am like those men who suffer the worst trials that you know, and miseries greater yet, as I might tell you. Hundreds. Indeed, the gods could send no more. You will indulge me if I finish dinner? Grieved though I am to say it, there's no part of man more like a dog than brazen belly, crying to be remembered, and it must be when we are mortal weary and sick at heart, and that is my condition. Yet my hunger drives me to take this food and think no more of my afflictions. Belly must be filled. Be equally impelled, my lords, tomorrow to berth me in a ship and send me home. Rough years I've had. Now may I see once more my hall, my lands, my people before I die." Now all who heard cried out assent to this. The guest had spoken well. He must have passage. Then tipping wine, they drank their thirst away, and one by one went homeward for the night. So Lord Odysseus kept his place alone with Arete and the king Alcinous beside him, while the maids went to and fro, clearing away the wine cups and the tables. Presently the ivory-skinned lady turned to him, for she knew his cloak and tunic to be her own fine work, done with her maids, and arrowy came her words upon the air. "Friend, I, for one, have certain questions for you. Who are you, and who has given you this clothing? Did you not say you wandered here by sea?" The great tactician carefully replied, "Ah, Majesty, what labor it would be to go through the whole story. All my years of misadventures, given by those on high. But this you ask about is quickly told. In mid-ocean lies Ogygia, the island haunt of Calypso, Atlas' guileful daughter, a lovely goddess, and a dangerous one. No one, no god or man consorts with her. But supernatural power brought me there to be her solitary guest, for Zeus let fly with his bright bolt and split my ship, rolling me over in the wine-dark sea. There all my shipmates, friends, were drowned, while I hung on the keelboard of the wreck and drifted 9 full days. Then in the dead of night the gods brought me ashore upon Ogygia into her hands. The Enchantress in her beauty fed and caressed me, promised me I should be immortal, youthful, all the days to come. But in my heart I never gave consent, though 7 years detained. Immortal clothing I had from her, and kept it wet with tears. Then came the 8th year on the wheel of heaven, and word to her from Zeus, or a change of heart, so that she now commanded me to sail, sending me out to sea on a craft I made with timber and tools of hers. She gave me stores, victuals, and wine, a cloak divinely woven, and made a warm land breeze come up astern. 17 days I sailed in the open water before I saw your country's shore, a shadow upon the sea rim. Then my heart rejoiced, pitiable as I am, for blows of plenty awaited me from the God who shakes the earth. Cross gales he blew, making me lose my bearings, and heaved up seas beyond imagination, huge and foundering seas. All I could do was hold hard, groaning under every shock, until my craft broke upon the hurricane. I kept afloat and swam your sea, or drifted, taken by wind and current, to this coast, where I went in on big swells running landward. But cliffs and rock shoals made that place forbidding, so I turned back, swimming offshore, and came in the end to a river, to auspicious water, with smooth beach and a rise that broke the wind. I lay there where I felt till strength returned. Then sacred night came on, and I went inland to high ground and a leaf bed in a thicket. Heaven sent slumber in an endless tide, submerging my sad heart among the leaves. That night and next day's dawn and noon I slept. The sun went west, and then sweet sleep unbound me, when I became aware of maids, your daughters, playing along the beach, the princess too, most beautiful. I prayed her to assist me, and her good sense was perfect. One could hope for no behavior like it from the young, thoughtless as they most often are. But she gave me good provender and good red wine, a river bath, and finally this clothing. There is the bitter tale. These are the facts. But in reply Alcinous observed, Friend, my child's good judgment failed in this, not to have brought you in her company home. Once you approached her, you became her charge. To this Odysseus tactfully replied, Sir, as to that, you should not blame the princess. She did tell me to follow with her maids, but I would not. I felt abashed, and feared the sight would somehow ruffle or offend you. All of us on this earth are plagued by jealousy. Alcinous' answer was a declaration. Friend, I am not a man for trivial anger. Better a sense of measure in everything. No anger here. I say that if you should please our father Zeus, Athena, and Apollo, seeing the man you are, seeing your thoughts are my own thoughts, my daughter should be yours, and you my son-in-law, if you remained. A home, lands, riches you should have from me, if you could be contented here. If not, by Father Zeus, let none of our men hold you. On the contrary, I can assure you now of passage late tomorrow. While you sleep, my men will row you through the tranquil night to your own land and home, or where you please. It may be even far beyond Euboea, called most remote by seamen of our isle who landed there, conveying Rhadamanthus when he sought Tydeus, the son of Gaia. They put about with neither pause nor rest, and entered their home port the selfsame day. But this you too will see, what ships I have, how my young oarsmen send the foam a-scudding. Now joy welled up in the patient Lord Odysseus, who said devoutly in the warmest tones, O Father Zeus, let all this be fulfilled as spoken by Alcinous. Earth of harvest, remember him. Return me to my homeland. In this manner they conversed with one another, but the great lady called her maids, and sent them to make a kingly bed, with purple rugs piled up, and sheets outspread, and fleecy coverlets in an eastern colonnade. The girls went out with torches in their hands, swift at their work of bed-making. Returning, they whispered at the Lord Odysseus' shoulder, Sir, you may come. Your bed has been prepared. How welcome the word bed came to his ears. Now then Odysseus laid him down and slept in luxury under the porch of morning, while in his inner chamber Alcinous retired to rest where his dear consort lay. End of Book 7.